Karl Marx is a person whose ideas have revolutionized the world, for good or bad. There have been wars fought over Marx's ideas, there have been revolutions, but what did Marx actually say? If you're a beginner to Marx, this video is for you. We're going to be talking about just his biggest main ideas. We're not getting into any of the details about what Marx might have said about political philosophy or anything like that. Just his main, most basic idea. What was it that Marx said that was so revolutionary and controversial? So here was Marx's big idea. He said that all the history of the entire world was the history of class conflict. Now, when we're talking about classes, we're talking about social classes, like rich versus poor. He said that the entire world has always had rich people who are stepping on poor people. He said that all history is the history of class conflict between the rich, who he called the bourgeoisie, and the poor, who he called the proletariat. If you ever use the word bougie, then you are referencing Marx. The word bougie comes from the word bourgeoisie. Okay, so he argues that the rich people, the bourgeoisie, are stepping on the necks of the poor people, the proletariat. How exactly? What is going on here that he thinks is happening? Here's what he said. Now keep in mind that Marx was writing in the 1800s, and at that time, most of the poor people that he would have seen had jobs in factories. So he framed all of this in terms of factory workers versus factory owners. Marx said that the bourgeoisie are the factory owners and the proletariat are the factory workers, right? So in order to understand his big idea, let's put it in terms of a modern job, because that makes a little bit more sense to us. Imagine that you're a person who is working at Taco Bell. Like maybe you're working in the kitchen or you're working in the drive-thru or whatever, but you're working at Taco Bell. You are making tacos all day. The kitchen is hot. Your feet hurt, your back hurts, you come home every day and you're smelling greasy and disgusting. You might have burns all over your arms from working with hot grease. It's tiring, maybe you've dropped stuff on your feet or whatever. Your body is broken and bruised and exhausted and burned because you've been making so many tacos and giving those tacos to customers in the drive-thru who, by the way, aren't very grateful. So you've been doing this very hard work. How much do you get paid? A lot or a little? A little, right? The workers at Taco Bell are going to get paid very little. But let's compare that to the owner of Taco Bell, the person who owns it. How much does that person get paid? A lot, right? That's a person who's getting paid a lot and is probably very rich. Well, that must mean that the owner is making tons of tacos and serving lots of customers every day, right? No, the owner doesn't make any tacos. You, the worker, are getting paid almost nothing, and you're the person who's actually making the tacos for Taco Bell and serving the customers. In contrast, the owner of the business is making a bazillion dollars in comparison to you, and that person isn't doing any of the actual work. Marx says, why is this? This is so unfair. You workers are the ones who are actually doing all the work and making the business run and serving the customers and making all the stuff that this business makes. And you're getting paid almost nothing, while the owner is the one who's getting paid a lot and they aren't actually producing the goods. Marx says that's not okay. The business owners are stealing from you. You're the one who should be getting paid because you're the one who's making all the stuff, and yet they're the ones who are rich. They're stealing from you. The profits from the company that that business owner has belong to you, the worker. You deserve it. You're the one who made all the tacos. You should go take what's rightfully yours. He thought that the workers should start a revolution where they take all the money that the rich people have and take it for themselves. Now, there are some people who might tell you that Karl Marx has just been so misunderstood. He really was a peaceful guy who never wanted any sort of bloody revolution. And really, he just wanted all of this to happen peacefully. That is not true. If you read Karl Marx's work, he was calling for bloody revolution and he wanted rich people to die. So Karl Marx's idea is that the poor people are going to grab all the weapons that they can find, their torches, their pitchforks, their knives, their guns if they have those. They're going to march to the factory owner's house, batter down the door, kill everyone inside, and take all those profits that are rightfully theirs. They're going to take the factory owner's stuff. Now, when they do this, because they are all the good people, Karl Marx definitely believed that the bourgeoisie were bad people, they were selfish, they were liars, they were manipulators, they were all these bad things. But the proletariat, the workers, they're the good people. So once all these good people take what's rightfully theirs from the bourgeoisie, right, they're going to take it all, and because they're all good people who are selfless and kind and sharing, they're all going to share all of those goods in common. When everyone is sharing everything in common, that's called a commune. You've probably heard that word before, people living on communes, where everybody works and shares everything in common. When this happens, when this revolution happens across an entire country, or Marx hoped it would happen across the entire world, then that would be called communism. Ah, you see what communism is now, right? Communism is a word that a lot of people don't understand what it means, but if you think about the root word commune, where we're going to share everything in common, it all makes sense. When communism happens on a countrywide scale, or hopefully a global scale, then the world is going to be a perfect utopia and everyone's going to live in paradise, according to Karl Marx. When everyone is sharing everything in common, there will be no more poverty, no more frustration. Nobody's ever going to starve again. There will be no more cause for wars, because he thought that all wars were caused by money, fights over money and resources, who has stuff and who doesn't have stuff, right? So once everybody is sharing everything in common, there will be no more cause for wars or revolutions or fighting. In fact, we won't even need to have leaders, because everyone is just going to be distributing all these goods amongst each other. In fact, remember at the beginning of the video, I told you that he believed that all history was the history of the fight between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. So if this communist revolution happens and we're all living in perfect peace and harmony, then history's going to end, according to Marx. That will be the end of history. Now, he's not actually literally saying that time is going to stop, like the earth is going to stop spinning or stop going around the sun. Instead, what he's saying is history as we know it will end. There will be no more need to write history books, because there will be no more wars, no more leaders, no more armies, no more politics, no more of all the stuff that we fill our history books with. That will all be over, because we'll all be living in a perfect, peaceful utopia. Now, I'll leave it to you to decide whether you think that this is actually realistic or not. Is it realistic that business owners are all stealing from their workers? Is it realistic that if the workers took all the stuff from the business owners, that they would all share it in perfect harmony and peace? Is that really human behavior? Right? So these are some of the questions that people have asked after they've read Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto, and after they understand communism. Now, I do want to emphasize here, this is just the most basic introduction to Marx and his ideas. If you're more interested in Karl Marx, I would highly recommend that you start reading some books about him. Read what he says, read what other people have to say about him. I would encourage you to read on both sides, people who love Marx and people who hate Marx, so that you don't just get one biased perspective. And Definitely, you could check out classes, maybe at your local community college. You can find some classes on Karl Marx and learn more about him because he is one of the most influential people in our history. And the reason why he was influential is because so many people read his big idea and said, we can do that. There were so many different groups of oppressed workers who said, we can kill the rich, take all their stuff, and distribute it in common, and we can start a communist revolution in our country. Just a few of the places off the top of my head that got excited about this idea and ran with it would be Russia, China, Cuba, but I'm sure you can think of a lot more countries where this kind of revolution has been attempted. So anyway, that's a basic introduction to Marx's big idea that changed the world.